How love can cure us of fear. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cope and Chill podcast, your place for practical approaches to self-care and self-healing for better emotional and mental health and well-being. And I'm Ron Martin. Thank you for being here. As promised, we launched Meditation Mondays on our YouTube channel, Cope and Chill, yesterday with a 5-minute meditation for beginners video. Meditation is something I swear by. It's a fast and easy way to dial it down, to find some peace in the midst of craziness. So if you're looking for a little bit of relief at any point during the day and have 5 minutes to spare, give this meditation a try and let me know how you feel about it. I will post a new meditation each week for you, so check back for more. And as always, you can check us out on Instagram at Cope and Chill, or on our Facebook page, the Cope and Chill Podcast, and on our YouTube channel at Cope and Chill, and of course at our website, copeandchill.com. Please subscribe, tell a friend, leave a comment, and give us a like. It helps the show grow and helps us get better. Thank you again. Let's talk about how love can cure us of fear. Today, we talked to author Cindi Buckley. After 15 years in the corporate world in software consulting, Cindi changed her life's direction in her early 40s. For the last 20 years, she has helped hundreds of people through meaningful life transitions such as the death of a loved one, opening to spirit, and finding the courage to make a change for the better. She published her first book, Cosmic Unity, and became a student of A Course in Miracles. I've actually had a couple of conversations with her, and each one was really fun, interesting, and a bit challenging. She has a warm wisdom about her and exudes a calm confidence that is deeply rooted in spirituality. We talk about some pretty fundamental things that people associate with happiness and fulfillment. Everything from love to acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, and so much more. We even briefly delve into the spiritual realm of spirit guides, angels, and past lives. But trust me, if that type of stuff isn't for you, we don't stay on it for very long. This is a conversation truly about love and how it can conquer fear. So join me as I talk to Cindi Buckley on the Cope and Chill podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Cope and Chill podcast. I'm Ron Martin, and I'm here with Cindi Buckley. And today, what I wanted to start with is, first, when I was first introduced to Cindi, she had made a few very intriguing and declarative statements that I wanted to bring forth to the audience here. I think it may challenge some of the way that you think about things, but I think that's a good thing. So what I'd like to do is first start with what caught my eye when I first met Cindi, and that she stated that love and fear are the basis of all of our problems, and that fear is so pervasive in our lives that we're not really aware of it. So, Cindi, I'd like you to help us understand what you mean by that. Maybe you can unpack that a little bit for us.
Well, all right. Well, I'll start with something reasonably simple by saying, okay, maybe not so simple. We as human beings are only capable of two emotions. We are capable of love and we are capable of fear. So now fear is what runs this world.
Mm,
Love does not run this world.
mm,
Anything that isn't love is fear.
mm,
It could be as simple as, I'll start with an example of, I'm special.
mm,
That's a fear statement because I am not special. Everyone is special.
mm,
We all have something to offer to everyone. Now, how do you know when it's love or when it's fear? You question yourself and say, is what I'm thinking a fear thing? Is what I'm thinking a love thing? We'll use judgment because judgment's something that everyone does pretty much all the time.
Hmm.
For example, have you ever met someone and you instantly disliked them? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's happened.
instantly.
Yeah.
Everybody's had that happen. I've had it happen. That's fear because something about them triggers something in you that says, oh, there's just something wrong here and I can't deal with this. Or you lash back out at them and you say something not nice to them. You could
Well,
use the example. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, let me add to that. I think in some of my personal experiences, I would say that yes, there's probably something instant that maybe you can't put your finger on it, but it just rubs you the wrong way. But I guess as I think about that, that judgment is, I don't like that person. I don't like something about that person. There's probably something going on inside of you that's telling you that, or that in my instance, it was telling me that. And I think though that there is the purpose of fear in that situation, is it based on um trying to analyze a potential threat or something that might be hurtful that's coming our way, and is that why we're afraid of it?
All those things are true.
Mm,
All those things are true.
mm,
And I will go a step probably a little further is you could have a past life experience with that person and it didn't end well.
mm, mm.
Something happened. I
Okay,
have
but
that case with my neighbor.
yeah. Okay.
You know, he doesn't like me. He just doesn't like me.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure we've had past life experiences and I wasn't very nice to him in another lifetime.
But okay, but when we talk about judgment, is the judgment that I guess it's basically labeling somebody in a negative kind of way, or you're sort of passing a judgment that this person isn't worth my time or is potentially a threat or something like that.
It is, but judgment is also a mirror.
Mm.
It's a mirror, a reflection of something that you do not like about yourself.
I do I do believe that. I do think that there are certainly things that I've seen in other people that have irritated me or that I've wanted to go out of my way to help them correct. But in reality, what I've noticed is that deep down, it's a reflection of something that I really want to correct about myself.
That's
Right.
a very hard thing to do, by the
Yeah.
way, to
Yeah.
actually acknowledge that about yourself.
Well, it becomes easier when I see it in my children, right? Because then I don't want to hurt my children, so it comes up as something like, oh my gosh, this person is doing something I don't like that when I do it, and I want to be careful not to be overly judgmental or critical or damaging to the child. So that's where that analysis comes from. But you're right, it would be harder for with somebody I didn't care so much about. Yeah.
It is. It's like imagine walking down the street and you see someone and they have, I don't know, flaming red hair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, oh my God, that's horrible. Well,
Mm.
that's a judgment.
Sure.
That's fear,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know? Or you could, instead of thinking, oh my God, that's horrible, you could actually think instead, wow, that person's got a lot of courage to do that. I admire that, to be able to be themselves.
Yeah. So, and the thing I like about what you just did there in your example is, because I've talked about this on another podcast, is the value of reframing, right? Because I think that was a reframe. There was that maybe instinctual inclination to judge that person, but if you change it, if you reframe it, that maybe it becomes more of a compassionate kind of statement, or a statement of understanding rather than judgment.
And you're passing along something kind and compassionate to them, which means you're giving it to yourself.
I was just going to ask you, what does that do for us if we do that? You're saying you're basically giving that same compassion to ourselves, which in effect, I guess, is part of that mirroring that we're talking about, just in a more positive way.
And the more you do it, believe me, it does affect you in a more positive way. And it feels really good.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
do. You really like the feeling of, wow, that felt good when
And
your
what
initial response was negative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and you know what's interesting about that is that in doing the shows that I've done, I've published 4 so far, but there's a bunch that I still have to edit and publish. One of the themes that keeps coming up in conversation is about the feedback or the wisdom of the body, right? And what you're saying is that if we're paying attention enough, if we're saying that nasty comment to that person, perhaps our body's giving us some feedback that doesn't feel so good. And conversely, if we compliment somebody and we share something nice about somebody and you say we feel good, that's your body saying, this is a reward for doing that. Keep doing that.
Yes. Now, I would like to challenge everyone to say, always say something nice about everyone,
And I'll go
even
a
if
step
you
further.
don't like them.
I'll go a step further is something that I was always taught growing up, something I heard around our family is if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
True,
Yeah.
true.
But you're going further. You're actually saying,
I'm going further.
yes, it's not just about holding something back. It's more about intentionally extending something that's kind and compassionate.
It is.
Yeah.
Tell me, what do you think kindness is?
Yeah. And
I love this one.
you did this to me the last time we talked, because you asked me these questions about like, well, what do I think these things mean? And it's funny because
Segue.
I don't really think about them in terms of a definitional sense, and I probably should, but if I had to say what kindness was, it is doing something that is helpful, considerate, compassionate, for another person that helps benefit them in a positive way. I don't know. I'm just making something up.
No, that's really good. I There are two types of kindness. There's the kindness where you do something just to be kind, to do it just to be because they need a person or animal or plant or whatever needs something.
Yeah.
So you do it. There's the other kind of kindness which you may not be aware of that you do. I'm not mean you specifically, but in
Hmm.
general,
Hmm.
that you do something for someone else, but you expect something in return.
Ah, yeah,
I had you over for dinner. Now I expect you to invite me over for dinner.
yeah,
There's the exchange philosophy.
yeah.
That's not kindness, that's manipulation.
It is manipulation, absolutely. And that does come from a place of fear and insecurity, 100%.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that being aware of that sensation, so yeah, perhaps we do something for someone and we maybe do get a bit disappointed because they didn't reciprocate, then that's probably a call to check in on ourselves and where our intentions are, where our motivations are in terms of doing that quote unquote act of kindness.
True,
Yeah.
true. Okay, so now I want to ask another question because I
Okay. I
just
thought
love
I was
to
supposed
ask
to be
this
asking
question.
you questions.
I'm sorry. Oh dear.
No, this is good. I think this is fun. Yeah.
I like to have fun. All
Yeah.
right. How what is your definition of success?
And this one you did ask me before.
I know.
Um,
It's fun.
yes. So the definition of success, I think what I said last time is probably still something I think has been ingrained in me, you know, just growing up how I grew up in the environments I've been in, schooling and otherwise, that it is the achievement or attainment of something accomplishment, um uh yeah, it involves the sort of step or progress towards something that you desire. I'll say it that way.
That's generally what most say. Now, I'm going to give you my definition of success. My definition is to be kind and compassionate to everyone.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I think, and when you say it that way, it becomes almost kind of a value statement or a fundamental belief that you operate, or an operating principle, or as my dad used to say, a life goal, right? It's something
Hmm,
that you aspire to act on and behave upon as you go out and do things in the world, right? It's something that you want to live by. I'd say
Yeah.
it that way. Yeah. So then how achievable is that though for the average person? I mean, what does that really look like in the end as we go throughout? And it's like you encounter people, you're out and about, and let's say I was at the doctor's office today, and I'm sitting there and they're asking me for my insurance and all this information. And then they give me a form that consists of about 7 pages, of which on 3 of those pages, they're asking me for the exact same information over and over again. And then I start to get irritated. So how do we, not that I said anything to anybody, but there are things that come about that are going to probably rub us the wrong way. So how do we live out this value that you just stated? Or how do you do it?
Well, I do it through forgiveness, and a hell of a lot of
Mm,
it, by the way. Don't mean to
mm.
be, swearing or anything, but I do a lot of it.
How
Um,
do you define forgiveness then? Because I've heard
well,
it defined a few different ways. Yeah.
I am a student of A Course in Miracles, and since I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, I define forgiveness as understanding that no one has done anything wrong.
Understanding that no one has done anything wrong. Okay. Help us understand that.
Now, if we live in a world where there's murder,
Mm-hmm.
fires,
Mm-hmm.
weather things, what if those things really weren't true?
What do you mean?
This world is based on ego. This world is based on fear. What if love doesn't partake in any of those things? And we're actually here to be the bridge between experience and love.
Help us understand that. Can you give an example of what you mean by that?
Um, I'm married, been married for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to say my husband gives me endless forgiveness opportunities because he
Mm-hmm.
does things that irritate me. As in any relationship, there's going
Mm-hmm.
to be the butting of
Sure.
heads.
Sure.
And as soon as he does something that irritates me, I sit back and go, I forgive both of us because what we have done isn't real.
And when you say it's not real, why do you say that? You obviously experienced it. He experienced it. There were emotions involved. What do you mean by not real?
Wait, give me a moment just to remember what I say.
Okay.
Oh, I forgive both of us for what we have not done. This is my dream. I made it up. It's not real. We are guiltless and sinless. There is only innocence, and I join with the Holy Spirit in peace. That's how I try to remember to always be kind and compassionate. And yes, I don't like being cut off driving in the car. Someone cuts in front of me when
Mm-hmm.
I'm, happily going along. And guess what? I forgive them for what they did because it irritated me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it irritates me, then there's something I have to work on. I have projected fear in some way.
But if there's something more egregious that happens to you, like you actually, let's say, end up in an accident and someone hits you, they're driving drunk and they hit you, is um tell me how that fits into why shouldn't I be angry? Why shouldn't I be fearful? Why shouldn't I have those emotions if that happens?
You're going to be initially, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
get past that to be able to say, "I forgive you."
Mm-hmm.
You
And
you
who are
just
we
weren't
forgiving? Who would I forgive in that scenario?
them and yourself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you partaked in it.
So tell me again what your definition of forgiveness is. I just want to make sure I understand.
Forgiveness is understanding that nothing has really happened.
When you
The
say
world,
nothing has really happened,
the
meaning,
world is just a dream. This is really going.
yeah, I know. That's why I'm trying to understand it. Yeah.
This is really going very, very
Are you
advanced.
saying like the world is like the Matrix, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Did you
So
like the Matrix?
I did. I honestly, I'm probably one of the few people who didn't necessarily understand it. I mean, there's plenty of people
No,
who did
many
it, but
people didn't.
okay. So when we say that it's not real, what do we mean by that? Now, I could give you a statement based on what I believe Buddhists may believe that means, based on what I understand there, and that is that there is that what has happened in the past and what happens in the future doesn't exist anywhere except in your head. In other words, the only thing that's the closest to reality is the present moment.
Hmm.
So, is this along the lines of
Hmm.
what you're talking about?
Hmm.
Okay. So
There is
so
no past and there is no future. There is only now.
right. And those things, the future and the past only really exist in our minds, right? Because once that moment is gone, it's gone forever, except for the life that we continue to give it in our heads.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. So, okay. So that gets pretty deep in terms of the skill that the average person might be able to apply this in terms of forgiving using that definition. Um, but
It takes a lot of practice, and I'm going to say repetition is your best friend.
okay, I was going to say, and what tips or guides could you offer to somebody to learn how to see it in this way, or to perhaps practice it in the way that you described?
Well, I have a very simple statement that I recommend to people, and I've used it myself. I still use it, and I find it incredibly helpful. And it's made up of just, I don't know, 4 or 5 words. I am always safe and protected.
Mm, mm, mm. That's very interesting. I actually say, and that also reminds me of what I'll call a Buddhist prayer. It's more of a I guess what they call sort of loving kindness statements. I say something like that to my kids every night before they go to bed, and it's may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be loved. But then I also say, and I enjoy ask them to join in with me. May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I be loved. And so there's a bit of an affirmation like feel to something like that, but then there's probably something deeper that I don't even necessarily understand about it as well. um but okay, so
Well,
why is it that you what does that do for you when you say something like that to yourself?
it brings me peace.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me realize I'm not alone. And I don't mean with other humans around. It means my loving guidance is always with me.
Mm-hmm.
And they will do what's necessary to make sure I'm safe. I can give an example. I have a
Well, that's a spiritual, you're saying it's more of like a spiritual definition, right?
It is a spiritual definition, but it works in the physical as well. And I can give an
Yes.
example.
Yeah.
I have an autoimmune disorder called morphia, and it's can be quite debilitating. I have limited mobility in some respects. I was heading for a wheelchair and
Mm.
decided I didn't want to be in a wheelchair. What could I do about it?
Yeah, sure.
And so we have little steps in our house, and I have a tendency to trip. Yes, we should move, but I
Yeah.
haven't tripped bad enough yet, apparently. So I'm coming down the steps. I usually hold onto the door jamb and I turn sideways to get down because my knees don't bend like they should.
Sure.
And so I was one day, I was cocky and I decided that I could do it without holding onto the door jamb. And my left leg completely, completely gave out on
Oh
me.
my goodness. Oh.
I mean, it just there was no feeling, it just didn't exist anymore. The leg was
Wow.
gone. I just
Wow.
completely gave out on me. And I was gonna land on concrete tile floor.
Wow.
And so all I did was say, "Oh, help, please." I asked my guides, the angels, to help me, and I fell. I hit the floor, but
Hmm.
it felt like I hit a fluffy pillow. I did
Interesting.
not hurt myself at all,
Yeah.
because I remembered to ask for help.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it would have been a devastating fall if I hadn't.
Yeah. 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 And so so you're calling for help from the spiritual world, or from, yes, absolutely. I understand. Well, I mean, that's a form of prayer, right? I mean, that's what we might traditionally call prayer, is that connectedness and that asking and communication with the spiritual world. And I think that that's also interesting because in some of the in one of the other podcasts that I had, interviews that I had in the last couple of days, it became very clear to me, because the themes keep coming up over and over again as I talk to people like yourself, that spirit is emotion and emotion is energy. And those things, so our emotion is almost a way to connect with the spiritual world, as you're talking about with love, right? And then, but it also shows up as energy in our body. And so if we're aware of that energy, like what we talked about before, that where if we say something judgmental to somebody, we get a physical feedback in our body. Or if we say something kind to somebody, we get a physical feedback in our body. That's the energy that's showing up as emotion in our body. So I just think it's very interesting. But so you talk about, so I think where we started was that, fear is pervasive and we aren't aware of it. And we talked a bit about what we mean by that. And then you talked about how love is acceptance. Tell us a bit about what you mean by acceptance. What does acceptance look like?
Well, some people will call acceptance surrender.
Yeah,
I don't
that's why I'm
actually,
asking the question.
yeah, I don't actually like the word surrender because
Right.
I'm not surrendering anything.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, you have to recognize this is another step forward. I'm not an individual.
Mm,
I'm a piece of the whole. And when all the pieces come together like a jigsaw puzzle, we see the whole picture. We do not see the whole picture.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so all I've done is accepted that there is a higher power that knows more than I do
Hmm.
and can guide me to what's best for myself and for everyone else.
Mm. I want to just go back to the first part of what you said, because when you said it's all connected, I believe that's what you said. What we're saying, or maybe I'll say that, is that I think what you were saying is that everything is connected, but maybe we don't see it that way. And when we don't see it that way, that's where the tendency to have a lot of fear comes into play. Is that
Well, we feel like a separate individual. We feel that we're
alone? Yeah.
alone. And
Unprotected. Alone means unprotected too, right?
right. And I ever since I was a child, I've always known I'm never alone. I don't feel loneliness. I never have. Well, maybe when I was a teenager, 4 or 5 times, but loneliness is not an issue for me. Boredom possibly, but not loneliness,
Right.
because I know there is always somebody around to talk to. And sometimes you'll see me, not anybody would see this, but I walk around the house talking away, and I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to my guides because
So
I'm moaning about something.
yeah. So how do we, if maybe we're feeling, I'm not saying that we are, but maybe if we feel like we're not connected, right? What would you say to someone who feels that way? How could they become more connected spiritually, in whatever ways are necessary to feel like they're not alone? What advice would you give them?
Well, I'd start with reading my book because it's an easy read, and this is what it's guided for. It's guided to help you open up to your own intuition. You
Mm,
need to find something that will help you open up to your own intuition, whether that be church,
mhm.
reading a book, my book, somebody else's book, whatever. I have a couple that I really enjoy. I could recommend to start the process with, not necessarily mine, but mine's very easy to read.
Well, tell us the
Um,
name of your book since you brought it up. Right?
Oh, the
Tell me
name of my book is Love Awakens You,
Love
and
awakens you. Mhm.
it has five sections to it. Inspirational sayings, which starts to unwind your fear. There are four-line verses, which are perception expanding verses. They unravel the fear more and more, and then you get to answers, questions you didn't know you had. And these answers help find the difference between love and fear, different elements of, and you'll be surprised at what some of those are. And then some meditations and reflections.
I was going to
And
say, I think when we first talked, you mentioned that the book doesn't really contain any affirmations per se. There's no journaling, there's no self-help techniques, but it is a book that inspires reflection, and well, and I guess meditation is a form of reflection too, and
Mhm.
connectedness, right? So so I think what you were saying to me before is that the approach that you took in this book is quite a bit different than what maybe others expect.
It is, because all you have to do is read the book, and I know people find that hard to believe because it's the way the words are put together that helps to unlock your true potential. It allows a little bit of light come out. If you think of like a lock,
Mm-hmm.
okay, a tumbler and a lock,
Mm-hmm.
and as you read the book, a little bit opens.
Yeah.
And the more you go, a little bit more goes. And what have I done? I've created a little bit of light to come out. And then
Mm.
you start to feel good. And then it gives you the courage to start making positive changes in your life because everybody needs positive changes. We all
Yeah.
come in to learn lessons, and sometimes they're hard, and sometimes they're awful, but we can move past them.
And I think you said that people who have read your book, everyone gets something a bit different from it. Is
They
that,
do.
yeah? And so tell us, what are some things that you've heard people get from their experience with your book?
I've actually had a person who is a Southern Baptist person, highly religious, actually like the book. She felt that it didn't offend anything religiously. So if you're a religious person, you're also going to like the book because it's based on universal truths.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a person who is an atheist absolutely love the book.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that it was just wonderful and that it was well written. um, I can use my husband as an example. He's somewhat resistant to change, just
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really resistant to change. He's my editor, and he had to read it numerous times. And guess what? He doesn't drive quite like a maniac anymore. Still a little bit every now and then, but he's much calmer driver than he used to be. He's also a bit kinder. He was good at the other kind of kindness where he expected something in
Sure.
return,
Sure.
but he's actually now learning just to be kind for the sake of being kind,
Yeah.
and that's impressive to watch. um, One of the meditations is it introduces you to meet your guides, and a friend of mine said she was really surprised at the gifts they laid at her feet.
Mm.
One person
And when
said,
we say guides, we mean spiritual guides, right? That,
spiritual guides,
yeah.
yes.
Or sometimes referred to as angels, right? Is that
It could be angels, it could be other forms
okay?
of
Sorry, go ahead.
life.
You said you were talking about your friend and the experience that.
Yeah, she did the meet your guides meditation, and
Mhm.
that was quite helpful for her. I've had one person read the book and say, "Wow, it really did release a lot of fears for her."
Mm, mm. And this is something that's fairly easy to get through. I mean, it's 150 pages, right? That's not, it's not a terribly long read, or but it is going to ask you to take a few moments to pause and reflect and perhaps perform meditations along the way.
Yeah, the meditations are optional. They're
Mhm.
a little bit advanced meditations. Um, they're optional, and the reflections are optional. I love the reflections. That's kind of my favorite part of the book. I love it all, but that's kind of my favorite.
Mhm.
There's 100 inspirational sayings, and as you read through it, you just start to feel good because it lifts away the fear.
Mm,
It's
mm.
like the layers of an onion. It peels away at what no longer serves you.
That's awesome. That's
It
awesome.
really does do that, and I know that's really hard to understand, but it does do that. It's helped me immensely.
Yeah.
Uh, that's hard to believe, I know, because 'cause I'm kind of verbose, but, um, I woke up one morning and I said, "That's it, I'm not publishing this book. I don't wanna do it. I can't
Mm,
do it. I
mm.
am not doing it." Guides are yakking away at me, I'm not listening, take a deep breath, little meditation, okay, keep going. So I had 2 or 3 panic attacks throughout this process,
Which is
but
definitely fear, right? I mean, that's a panic
oh,
attacks are, yeah,
absolutely.
that's fear.
I have to talk about myself. I have to get out there and talk about something that, I've spent 20 years learning, but
So how
I
did you
actually really
overcome it?
enjoy it.
How did you overcome it? How did you get past that thought or that fear of, or whatever it was, the panic of associated with publishing the book? You obviously published it, so how did you move beyond it?
I just kept moving ahead
Hmm,
despite the fear.
hmm.
I just kept moving ahead and saying, all right, you guys have to help me, my guides. I said,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual guides, you guys have to help me because this is hard. I'm happy staying home by myself,
Mm-hmm.
hiding. I'm good at it, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that anymore. So, but you know what? I really enjoyed talking about it. It's really a lot of fun. I
That's
get
awesome.
challenged as well as people ask questions. I get challenged. Oh, gee, that's a good question. How am I going to answer that? And
Sure,
I like it. It's
sure, sure.
fun.
So how would people find this book if they wanted to read it? Is it on Amazon? It's on Amazon, is that
It's
right?
on Amazon. Yeah.
Do you have a website? Do you have a URL that
I do have a website. It's Cindi, Cindi, Buckley, Buckley.com. I
mm,
have a monthly blog that I actually take one of the inspirational sayings out of the book and I explain it out a little bit. And sometimes I give little exercises to
awesome.
do.
And the exercises are different than the reflections you're asking
Oh,
people.
yes. Oh, yeah. It's all
Mhm.
new.
Yeah. Awesome. 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 Well, Cindy, this has really been an intriguing conversation. It's very interesting. I think very eye-opening for people. So I think there's some real value here that people will get out of this experience. So I do appreciate very much you coming on the show and sharing with us all of your vast experience and knowledge. And thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed talking about it and meeting you as well. I mean, so
Pleasure
much
to meet
fun.
you too. Yeah. Thanks again. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you were able to take some inspiration or something of value from today's show. To access all of the resources and links mentioned, please head on over to copeandchill.com or our video-based podcast on our YouTube channel at Cope and Chill, where you will find the show notes for today's episode. That's Cope and Chill, CopeandChill.com. And for information about upcoming episodes, check us out on Instagram at Cope and Chill. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're joining us from YouTube, and leave a comment wherever you're joining us from. Please come back and join us again for next week's episode. But until then, take care of yourselves.